Welcome back to the Tasting Room, episode 16. I knew the number this time.
Yeah.
I had to look it up earlier, to be fair.
Well, you know.
Yeah, you know. We have a fun one today. As you can see, Jake Miller from Heirloom Rustic Ales.
We've got a plethora of stuff.
You brought the, what's that called? A howler?
A howler of the British
Golden.
Golden.
Shirt I'm wearing?
No.
Howler head.
Oh, okay.
They sent it to me. I was like, I'll wear it. Sure.
There we go.
It looks like McDonald's t-shirt. It's red and yellow.
A screaming.
So that's the one that I called you about over the weekend. That's the weird banana whiskey.
Yeah.
So we'll try it. I didn't bring it this time, but we'll try it.
Yeah, we'll try
soon.
it sometime.
I want to get your tasting notes. But this was fun. This was a lot of good conversation.
Was super cool.
Yeah, it really was. You just want to get right to it?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about it? You looked like you were about to say something.
No.
Something deep and profound.
No, let's dive right into it.
All right, Jake Miller after the break.
Hey, I'm John. I'm one of the partners here at Grassfire Creative. We are a production company. We do animation, video production, live production, anything you need to creatively tell both your story and your business's story. Along with the content that we create, we also provide the strategy behind how to get it in front of the eyeballs that matter to you. We're located right in the middle of the United States in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so no matter where you are, we're just a short flight away. Bottom line is we are very excited to both meet you and tell your business's story. Please do reach out to us one of the ways below via email or phone number, and check out more about us at our website, grassfirecreative.com.
Welcome to the Tasting Room. Today we have Jake Miller from Heirloom Rustic Ales.
The one and only.
Which has been kind of a chore.
Well,
it's been
unluckily for Jake's sake.
For him.
Well, and our sake. Yeah.
My body's been a cruel master. It is not my fault.
How was that? That's kind of a marathon of getting over stuff.
Yeah. I've never had a kidney infection before. Hope to really keep the slate clean on them.
We don't want to do that again.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because it takes just kind of a while to figure out that you've got one. And so you're just in this perpetual state of fever. And just like I would wake up, go into the kitchen, immediately get back in bed for 3.5 hours or so.
Man,
super
that
tight.
Sounds super fun.
So that is why I felt like having like 14 beers in the afternoon was not
probably not
ideal.
What the doctor ordered for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Dumping emergencies into loggers.
Instead, you just saved it all for today. We have a lot to try, and I can't wait to do it. We have a lot to talk about. I want to talk about, the fishing and the conservation side of things, obviously the brewery side of things. I want to talk about the F1 side of things with the Australian Grand Prix coming up Saturday. But to start, you were telling a story prior to Austin getting here. The fact that you can breathe today and your lungs aren't scarred is it's pretty impressive. Let's crack open whichever one you want to do first, and then I want you to. It's like the life of a brewer, right? Like a brewery owner is what you had to deal with today. So what do you want to open first?
I think we got to go live oak.
Live oak pills.
Yeah.
All right. Let's pass
Hard
them
to
around.
not start with those.
And as I'm doing
I'm on the edge of my seat. I want to hear the story.
So this is obviously real quick. Live oak down in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Like if not. It's hard to say something's the best or whatever, but this is one of my favorite Pilsners in existence.
If you haven't drank this, you're not living.
No, true. I think out of all the hype lager, this is the one that I continue to come back to.
Cheers to you, buddy.
Cheers.
Thanks for bringing these. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers.
All right, so now let Austin in on what your Monday consisted of and, the life of a brewer.
I was basically just cleaning out the HLT that had built up some pretty solid calcification.
Perfect. Been there.
All kinds of deposits. And so the thing is my HLT is...
For those that aren't in that world, what is an HLT?
Hot liquor tank.
Yeah, so it's basically...
I'm going to be that person and ask those questions.
Yeah, let me know. It's basically just a tank that we store water in that stays at anywhere from 170 to 180 degrees. And it's what we mix with barley to make the sugar to make beer. But the problem is, it's not a problem. It's actually what I love, is that Tulsa water is extremely hard. And we don't do reverse osmosis or anything like that. So we just deal with what we've got. And it means that our tank is constantly getting calcified. And we have this tank that I use. It's from 1978.
Yes.
It's one of the very early JV Northwest pieces. Kind of cool. I love that tank, but I hate it when I have to clean it.
Days like today.
Yeah. There's no, so typically tanks have a drop down spray ball that just circles around. This has nothing. It is just a cylinder. So to clean it, I have to physically get in it. And it's like
lock in, lock out.
8 feet tall. And it's like this big around the hole that I'm getting through. And so it's like a test of joints and backs.
Claustrophobicness.
And then you're down there with vinegar and baking soda, just making little 5th grade bombs. And it's like filling your lungs completely. And just, it's not fun. It's not fun.
Yeah.
But have been putting that off for some time. And
you survived.
Yeah. Have been. And Melissa got into the tank yesterday.
Oh, man.
Just being true brewery owner as well.
Yeah.
And then I did it today. It's been great.
So for listeners out there, if you go at least because of our water, which is actually really good brewing water.
Yeah.
But we don't filter at all. We just go straight into the HLT. If you go, well, at least in my space, if we go 3 months or 4 months without cleaning it, we can have at least 1.5 feet of calcification at the bottom of the tank.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's chalky, white, flaky junk that is actual calcium that is just built up in your tank.
But it makes great Saison. So
and Pilsners.
Yeah, 100%.
I was just reading this. I love, it's just like the most generic yet, I don't know, it's cool in a way when it says using traditional beer making methods inspired by old world style beers. Like it could be anything. It's not giving any secrets away on that label, but I love it though.
This place is crazy. So I reached out to the head brewer before Heirloom even opened, and I asked if I could come make beer with him. And so I actually got to brew a batch of pills with him over a day. And it is wild there. Before they got their new system, so their new system is called a Braucon. It's like the Rolls Royce of Germany. It's super incredible. But before they were doing that, they were using kind of a pretty normal system. And they do this mash style called decoction. And they have a 15-foot long paddle because they were just rolling in like grain and liquid into their kettle, boiling it. And while they're doing that, some guy is just sitting there scraping it off the bottom with this paddle. And it's crazy. I was like, this is exactly what I hoped this place was like.
I love that.
It's a super romantic spot. And they have more horizontals than anybody I've ever seen. I mean, walking through that production space, it's just, so a lot of people that do lager brewing, after they ferment, they send it to a horizontal tank. So basically the yeast falls out faster. And it's, I mean, they had to have, I mean, it's just walking through like a Sam's warehouse just full of tanks on their sides. And it's, I don't know, it's fine.
That's awesome.
I hope one day I get to see it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, you talked about romantic places. I think that's a good way to start because you've been to a bunch of, maybe you don't consider them romantic, but just different cool places in your beer journey. So kind of walk us through your start to where you are now, Cliff Notes version if you want, or expound on anything you want, because I know you've seen some cool things and been to some cool places.
No, sure. I've been super lucky in that regard. Started here at Prairie back when it was in West Tulsa with Chase. And it was just me and him and Colin in a really piece of shit warehouse making beers on the system that I now make beers on at Heirloom.
What was your favorite beer from that time that you made?
Oh my God. Probably Vue Francais.
Great beer.
Oh, that was a good beer.
Yeah, that was based off of a beer. Chase and I, Sean Hill from Hill Farmstead sent a box of beer, and he had just done a collab with Blaugy, which is a historic Belgian brewery. And we opened this beer, and I just was floored. I was like, I don't care about saisons that don't taste like this. And so Vue Francais was a reaction to that beer. And I don't know, I love everything about it.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited. Just one more thing on Prairie before you move on down your timeline. The Brooks and Dunn, I think is what it's called, that they've had on occasionally.
It's a great beer.
It is a great beer. And I was with Josh Royal and Hayden, and we were drinking, and he had it, and he said, this is the best beer Chase has made in who knows how many years. And what it was,
I would 100%
I told
agree.
Chase this on Saturday. He mentioned that beer, and I told him what Josh said, and I told him why he said it, which was that this was the OG Chase.
yeah,
This is what you used to do. And he was excited to hear that because that's what he's trying to get back to.
yeah,
Doing beers like that, like Vue Francais, which, you know, it's not his fault. You do what you have to do to make money and to sell beer. But I feel like a lot of breweries do that. I don't know if either of you have, not to my knowledge, but I don't know the right way to say it either, but it's like is it maybe that you listen too much to consumers and you get away from brewing your passion? Or I don't know how that happens at breweries, but you know, for Solera, it was a lot of IPAs and it was a lot of heavy stouts. And now Chase is kind of able to get back, or starting to get back to the fun stuff like that was right in his wheelhouse to begin. So I'm excited to hear that he's going back in that direction a little bit.
yeah. I think when you do this for a long time professionally, like not a few years, but like a lot of years, what tends to happen is you have moments where it is a job, and that's what it is, and you're just getting through it, and you're showing up, and it's like anybody else experiences their job.
Maybe that's what I'm describing. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, and then there's these moments where you have like revelations where you're like, oh my God, I do still care about this. And you have beers that wake you back up. It could be something you brewed, or it could be something you have. I think Chase is a normal person,
Absolutely.
like anybody else
Yeah.
in that regard, where there's just moments where you're like operating a business through a pandemic, or it's like, I've been brewing for 9 years and I really have kind of seen through plenty of things, like, you know, and then you look at how much your payroll costs this month, and, you know, all those things start to collide into creating, I would say, pretty balanced humans.
I wonder, for either of you, is there a way to avoid that from a creative standpoint as a brewer? Or is it just part of
I think that's
owning
why
a brewery?
hire people,
Yep.
you know, and let, you know, my brewer, Josh, his first original recipe is getting released in the next week.
Oh, awesome.
Sweet.
And, you know, finding folks like that you build into kind of the creative bandwidth for when you're being an asshole, you know, and just doing what you have to do. You know, I think those people are important.
I would mirror that exact answer. Is just finding some people that have the same kind of mindset that you've got within your brew house and whatnot. Yeah, for me, you know, we're pretty, I would say, pretty firm on not necessarily falling into a lot of trendy styles and this, that, and the other.
Right,
Obviously, we make an hazy IPA. We have to pay some bills, but it is pretty cool when your team backs you up in your passion for making a Pilsner or making British Goldens or whatever, and just trying to expand everybody's palates and whatnot, and just sticking to it.
In the way I say it here in our partner meetings and stuff, and I feel like I'm just on repeat because it comes up at least like twice a month. And I think it's what we're talking about too. It's working in the business versus working on the business.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's just interesting how that happens in different, no matter what the business is.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what you're in, you can get stuck in the monotonous day-to-day bullshit.
Sure.
And you lose the creativity. It's just gone. And then you have to go back and find it. So it's.
Oh yeah.
Keeping that away from being a one person thing. And that's something I've tried to cultivate for a while too, because I think there's also a lot of bullshit around like, oh, I'm the brewer and I am the
like an ego thing
developer. And, you know, empowering plenty of people to do that, I think makes better beer anyway, because then when you go to bat and you're like, well, I'm doing an original recipe today And it's like, man, they've been hitting it out of the park. Better show up. You know, I like that environment, but there definitely is still a lot of, you know, like, I'm the man behind this stuff. And I think the more you get away from that, and I think Chase has done a great job of empowering like other people, Caleb and all that.
Right.
That, you know, Greg, I think, is like a super smart, savvy dude. But just like making sure that there's plenty of people speaking into the beer keeps it up for sure.
I interrupted you. Like you were going down your timeline, and we've only gone through one stop. So sorry. Continue on your life journey here.
Yeah. After that, I moved to Oregon and worked at a place called Wolves and People. Maybe top 5 most romantic breweries in the country. 100-year-old barn. Used to be a winery for a really great wine producer out there called J.K. Carrier. It's on a 21-acre hazelnut farm that backs right into the Chehalem Mountains, which is a great wine region as well. So, I mean, we would have like...
How did they get work done?
Right. It was tough. But we'd have like all the surrounding vineyards, like during harvest, like after a day. I mean, most of the time you're working till like night, and you go home, you have one beer, and you're basically drunk because you've worked so hard for 14 hours straight. You pass out, get up at 6 and do it again. But about once a week, they would all just pile into the brewery and drink. And I made this beer called Crush Pad Pills, and like all the winemakers would gather around and only drink that. And it was, I don't know, like probably the coolest thing I've ever really been a part of, to see that. And I worked a lot of wine down there too, or up there. And that was a really huge and impactful part of, I think, my trajectory.
You think did that start your love for wine, or did it just continue to grow it?
Definitely harnessed it. Yeah. Working wine it fits my personality a lot. It's super long days and just beating yourself up, but like super simple. And I like it a lot. But also that was kind of like harnessing lager as well. We'll try the one here in a bit.
Absolutely.
Really kind of manifested all of that. But did that for a while, and then moved to Florida to work at St. Somewhere.
I forgot that you went to Florida.
Yeah.
That's where the Florida Stories comes from.
Yeah. I forgot a lot of being in Florida.
That's probably better for your mind.
Have you done the Florida Man Google challenge?
No.
Where you Google Florida Man and your birthday and you see what headline comes up?
Oh man.
Because
that's good.
Go ahead and tell your story about St. Somewhere, and I'm gonna play this game real quick live as we go here.
No, I'm excited. This is like a Florida horoscope. I'm into it. Went there just because I was getting kind of worn out on the industry. I felt like I was seeing a lot of bullshit that I didn't really appreciate. And there's something really special about Bob at St. Somewhere. He was one of the earliest American Saison producers, right behind Jolly Pumpkin. I think he started 3 months after Jolly Pumpkin. And in my opinion, makes the best American Saison out there. And so I just kind of wanted to see it. Dude's got a wild process in that he doesn't really have a whole lot of chemicals, cleaning. It's just a lot of like Solera fermentation, and he makes one beer basically.
That's amazing.
Yeah. He throws spices and herbs and stuff. It's like Fantôme, very similar to Fantôme. He makes one base beer and then sometimes adds stuff.
For people that don't know, Fantôme's a Belgian Saisonery out in that world.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Delicious beer. Do you want to know what mine was? So on April 18th, the headline, I don't know from what year, was a naked Florida man in a Publix parking lot kicked trash cans and jumped on and punched cars while screaming, "I only had one beer." That was my headline.
I think that headline could be any day.
Right. Yeah.
The stuff you
It's a
would
fun game
see
to play.
there-
Play the Florida
Yeah.
birthday game.
I
Florida
like
man
this.
birthday game. Yeah.
Maybe on Florida Stories we'll have to just write
There
fake
you
stories
go.
that are maybe real. I have a feeling if I wrote a fake story, the most dramatic thing I could think of, it probably has just already happened.
I do want to ask you about your writing, but so you went from Florida. Was it back here?
Yeah.
Was that- yeah.
So basically, I went there just in the interim while we were waiting for the beer laws to change before starting, and kind of to get my morale back up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll let you chime in. Do we want to? I mean, you brought a lot of beer. Do we want to?
let's go for it.
Do we want to open another one? Where do you want to go
Send
next,
it.
Jake?
Sure.
Eventually,
so,
we'll get to the bourbon, but I think it'll
Yeah.
be towards the end.
Sure.
We'll keep that for a
so
later one.
this is a little bit different than probably what you've been doing, but I thought it'd be a fun way to do this. I just brought my 3 favorite lager
absolutely.
producers from the Pacific Northwest. So these 2 are Washington. This is Chucka Nut, which is arguably the most awarded brewery in the country. It's like their
literally
Pilsner.
is.
I think they have 28 medals for
you
their
serious?
Pilsner. Like,
Yeah.
it's insane.
And it's called what? I have not heard of it.
Chucka Nut.
I have not
Yeah.
heard of it.
Yeah.
You could fuck that name up in a bad way.
But
It's
I
a
mean,
mess. But yeah, they're an incredible producer. And then this is Structures.
You want some of this too, right?
Yeah, go for it. Structures is a newer brewery, but putting out a lot of really good juice. This is like my entire inspiration for sure on the lager frontier. This is Heater Allen. It's run by Rick and Lisa Allen. They were right down the street from me when I was at Wolves and People. I would just stop in basically almost every day and hang out with them. But they've been brewing nothing but lager for a decade now.
Oh man,
Over a decade.
that's incredible.
Okay, so first question for me, because this goes back from actually last week with Max from Jackson Hole.
Yeah.
He was like, "So, what do you think that we should brew?" And my mind was like, "Dude, I have no pinpoint on what Tulsa people actually drink because
Oh, this is going to be a fun topic
what
here.
what we throw at them, they drink." And so I think that we both have a pretty common theory of how we release beers, but I didn't really necessarily know how to answer that question because he was like, "What's popular in Tulsa?" And I was like, I actually have no clue
Yeah.
because I've got this on the board and they're all selling really well. Do you have any kind of pinpoint on what you think is popular here in
I have
Tulsa?
a great follow-up to this
because
too.
because this community is wild and it is awesome, and I love it to death. Because one week we can release a British Golden, the next week we can release a Bock beer, and they both sell almost equally.
Right.
Please give me
Enlighten us,
give me
Jake.
some enlightenment.
I think when I
I'm going to have
describe
you lean
it,
up a little bit too. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Man, always in relax mode.
I love it. You've been working hard.
I think what I usually tell people is we have such a diversity of drinker because we have some of the original beer traders that were taking back before it was even barrel aged, just taking
Bomb.
bomb and sending it all over the country. So you have this group that's like been trading beer for almost 10 years and kind of were really early on into all the memberships. So you have that's been super developed, but in like a really niche audience. But then less than 2.5% per capita are drinking consistently craft beer, which is way low.
Way low.
And
I didn't realize it was that low.
Yeah.
That's a really low number.
Which is great. That
Room to
just
grow.
means that, more people can open breweries and that the breweries that are open will survive. And then you have this whole middle ground of people that have just been drinking at our bar and McNally's for a long time. And I mean, McNally's is kind of, I take people to that bar just because I'm like, you want to watch people order like Belgian quads? because there's like no place
This
on
is
earth
where it
you
happens.
can still do that.
Yeah.
And you walk in there and it's just like so many big boozy dark beers that aren't adjuncted or barrel aged. I know of no place you can go that I've lived where that happens. But then you can go watch people line up to spend $50 on a Solera stout. But then you can go watch, 20 family members come in on a Saturday and 15 of them have never had a beer made locally. And so I think really whatever you want to do right now, there's a niche. And that's why it's kind of hard to explain, because you can put out a beer and somebody's going to drink it, because we just have a little bit of everything. And I don't think that all the trends that are coastal trends apply to Tulsa.
Is that why you almost have to have a solid compass as a brewery owner? Because that sounds like you could get lost pretty easily. Where if everything you brew sells, then what are you as a brewery if you don't have if you're just making whatever sounds good that day or week or month, like you're just kind of
and that's
in the
model.
wind, right?
That's a model. Just like whatever you feel like making today, push it out there, because we make, a lot of diversity, and that's kind of the whole point. People every week want to come in and see a new beer. I think there's plenty of breweries doing that well. Yeah. And then you have like the opposite, where it's like we make a lot of distribution beer that has to be available. And then there's middle ground. But I think you can, right now in Oklahoma, I think you can be successful doing any of those. Yeah. What that'll be like in 5 years, that'll be the more interesting, I think.
Yeah, it was nuts this last week. We released the British Golden Ale that we did with Balcones and sold a half a barrel of that beer over the weekend. And then we released the 918 Cerveza, and we sell a barrel of that beer in one weekend.
Those styles could not be more different.
And it's like, that's why I was excited to ask the question. It's just like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, you've done a great job of cultivating at your place. I think you have like a super strong local audience that's very much invested in whatever you all are excited about. And I think that's like a magic formula too to tap into, where it's like when they see a new beer release, they're like, tell me about it. And then they get romantically involved with it and super excited to drink it. I think you guys have done a great job of making that happen.
Oh, you'll make me blush, but thank you.
Yeah, no.
Blush, just don't cry. So I think one of the things that is the most unique about your brewery, about Heirloom, in addition to and this isn't a knock on the beers you make or anything like that, it's the descriptions on the menu.
Yeah.
So take me through the process. Do you get stoned as hell? How do you some of the things that you write on those descriptions? I'm just like, how does he come up with this?
I wish I had an answer.
But you're also like a poetry guy, and so you like your literature.
Yeah.
So that probably helps.
No, I definitely read a lot. What's funny about those descriptions is it was really originally a knock on the brewing industry. I was writing those to make fun of people who were trying to have experiences all the time with beer. It's like, I don't know. I don't want to make beers that people clamor for and have to pay a lot of money for, sit around and pour 4 ounces. That's the only bit of it they'll ever get. And then they're so analytical because they're so invested at that point. And it's like, that's just not what I think beer is. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with people who enjoy that and want to do that. It's not a knock on them. I just don't see beer as, that's not how I want that to function. I'd rather do that with other things. Yeah. And so I was doing it to kind of make fun of all of that was going on. And then we released a beer and I didn't write one, and people gave me so much shit. Like,
well, now you fucked yourself because like you've got to do that for every single beer.
There's weeks too where like we just get crushed over the weekend, and I have to come in and put 3 new beers on draft, and it's like, you know, I'm dealing with shit like I am today, and I'm like, cool, I guess I'll go try to give a shit about, you know, what weird
reminding you of grandma's attic or something.
Yeah. So there's times you can actually go to Heirloom and see how I'm doing that week by how many gaps there
Jake's
are.
mental state. Let's look at this. Do you have an example on your phone of one that you can read or something for people that are listening or watching that haven't seen them?
I would probably.
So if there's like a short description, I should like call you up and be like, hey, Jake, is everything okay? Is everything okay?
Yeah, and I'm like, I'll get back to you after this therapy session. Yeah, no, it's what it'll say. Hey, this is how you know if I'm not having a great week, because it'll say description coming soon, but there'll be like 3 of those, and it's sometimes they just never do come.
I should have had you bring a menu because I was thinking about that question because I wanted to read one or have you read one.
I could probably.
See if Jess or someone, because
on the website. I think this is how little I would die if I did not have Jess.
Can we break into this?
Which one do you want to go with next? The tall one or the other one?
Let's go with the
Chucka
Nut.
Chucka
Nut.
Is it this one?
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, I was touching the wrong
Chucka
can.
Nut Brewery Chuck Light Lager. I mean, that's just the most simple, and it's going to be delicious.
It is going to be delicious.
Yeah, they're my friend brews there, and he is. I mean, just the amount of data that they collect on a single beer.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like all of us do have like our own numbers that we're interested in, whether it's like pH during fermentation, mash, whatever. They have like huge logs of every single data point at every single part of the process.
Are they breaking even down the like hours of the day?
I don't know if it goes that far, but you look at a brew sheet and you're like, whew, that is a different way to make beer. It's very involved.
It does not smell what I expected that to smell like based on the.
There's a little bit of dandelion.
There's a little bit of funk in there. And I just like Chuck Light Lager. I was just expecting, I don't know what I was expecting, but.
The finish is just such a great grain finish.
That's wonderful minerality.
Yeah.
You got anything?
A beautiful sulfur.
Yeah. All right.
All right, here we go. This is a Jake Miller exclusive. What beer is this?
This is Frozen Bloom, which is our Baltic porter.
All right, get up and kiss this microphone and give a real deep voice as you read this.
Yeah, get my Attenborough.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, we haven't brewed this beer since the winter of 2019 and knew we needed to bring it back. This strong dark lager is brewed with unmodified barley and a smattering of specialty malts. Fermented ice cold with our house lager yeast and kept cold for weeks after fermentation for a squeaky clean finish. This beer reminds us of eating no-bake cookies next to an ounce of Buffalo Trace and sipping freshly roasted Yirgacheffe out of a praline straw. So
there you go.
I'm there in the story.
Yeah. So what's obviously the genesis of that comes from your palate and comes from the tasting notes that you have for the beer. How the hell do you figure out what to? The one that always is in my mind is the Grandma's Attic.
Oh yeah,
and I don't remember what beer that was.
Probably
that was. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. But like that is such a. I would never tie that description to a taste or a flavor profile, but I was there when I read it. I was like,
it hits home.
That's yeah.
I think, the other thing too is it's like if you read other industries' tasting notes of their stuff. I'm like, yeah, bullshit. Like I'll totally drink a coffee that's supposed to be like, this is loaded with wild blueberries, and I'm like, it's not.
Tastes like coffee,
Yeah. And there are moments actually where I've had them like that, where it is like, holy shit, like how did this happen? And that's awesome. But I think there's just a lot of marketing in that world, more so than the actual. This is someone who really worked through this. So what I do is I take the beer And then if I get distinct notes, I just take it to the most extreme place I ever could imagine. And so the job is to take something, if it's like, oh, well, I use mosaic. And so there's like some blueberry lime. You know, what's the weirdest, most concentrated form of that? And so it's just sitting around being like, oh, yeah.
I love that. And is it only you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Man, for now.
You wish you could outsource that one?
Yeah. That might be like a hire that out sort of gig.
While out at our brewery, we normally keep it to 4 tasting notes.
Four words.
Yeah. And it's 4 words.
Yeah, which is smart for a lot of reasons. The best, though, what I didn't realize is that most people that read them think that those things are in the beer. So they'll be like, man, I don't really get the buffalo trace. And I'm just like, God, yeah, because that's illegal.
I don't get the grandma's attic.
You didn't read the story.
Right. So then there's this whole, my bartenders hate me. That's really what it comes down to. It's like, yep, none of the things in there are in that beer.
It's just Jake being Jake.
Yep. Yeah. And so it's also like, we'll get, 55-year-old white guy in there that's just like, I hate these descriptions. They don't help me at all. And it's like,
let this breathe.
How about you just grow up a little bit?
Yeah, it's going to be fine, homebrew guy. It's going to be just fine. And, you can't appeal to
HBG, homebrew guy.
Yep.
So as you well know, we usually do a 6-pack of questions, but it turns into about 60.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Not really, but
there's tangents on tangents.
There's tangents.
Yeah.
But for my official second question is, you have been pretty much a national brewer. You've gone to a lot of different areas, and just to concentrate on why did you pick Tulsa to land? Because being, you're from here and this, that, and the other, and that is, grounding. But you left the nest egg and went off into the world, and you could have picked so many different areas of
It's a good question.
America. Yeah. Why were you excited about Tulsa specifically? And it's really cool to have you as a neighbor, basically right down the road, and exciting to have someone that's so eccentric with their brewing, which is really cool and challenging, to someone that's very continental European brewer. Why were you excited about Tulsa, and what drew you back here?
Yeah. Sorry.
I got you.
I told you you're gonna have to tell me.
I got you
the whole time.
Long legs over there.
Yeah, it just keeps slowly sliding back. Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. I mean, for one, it feels weird not to make something in a place where you're from. It's like, I don't know, being in the Pacific Northwest and being like, look, I've lived here for a couple years, and like I brewed here, so that gives me the right. I just never felt that way. I think too, I probably would have opened a brewery right out of Prairie here, but it the laws didn't make any sense for what I wanted to do. And so I was talking to multiple people before I left Prairie when they found out that I was searching, that wanted to do that with me. And at the end of the day, I just was like, I don't feel ready. And the kind of compromises I'd have to make to open a brewery here now are not ones I'm willing to make. So it kind of was something I had seriously considered well before I did it. And what I kind of realized too, though, is that I'm kind of a masochist in the sense that I want to, nobody's going to work as hard as I am when it comes to a craft. It's the same with fly fishing. I will bury myself alive 3 times and barely crawl out before, I feel competent. And that's how my personality has always been. And so I decided to also just go try to learn as much as I could before opening. And, and part of my biggest issue, I think, with not an issue, but just something I saw is there were so many people that just had zero vision. It's like every day is like they'd wake up as a new person in their cellar, which is fine. But I knew that's not how I wanted to do it. And so I wanted to go brew at a few different places, have a whole bunch of people around me that were brewing. I mean, it's hard to beat like the Tampa scene and the Portland scene, and just where you're challenged every single day and people are pushing you, to become even better. And I wanted those experiences, and I was seeking those out. But yeah, what's funny is I feel like I'm like, it's hard. Like if you look at our tap list, I think as far as European goes, hard to beat it. I mean, we're known for like the 4 beers a year that are like foraged, or something like that. But as far as like walking in and seeing like a European inspired list, I think that's what we do.
Oh, I can back that up.
Yeah.
I love being able to come over to your place and either
absolutely.
drink a Pilsner, a Kolsch, a Pilsner, or a Kolsch.
Yeah.
It's like your sweatshirt. What, Lager Gospel?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been times where we've had 10 lagers on draft, and
That's awesome.
it's, and that's been, I was helping a friend with a business plan the other day. And so I was using ours as kind of like a model. And the 2 categories of beer that I put in there, and this is, 5.5 years ago, lager, saison.
Interesting.
And, and I
You've
think,
stayed true to that.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely.
With a couple of Baltic
Yeah, I mean,
porters.
you go.
That's a lager.
I mean,
It
it is
is.
a lager.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. We make IPA and stuff. I've never had like an issue like saying like, yeah, if you want hoppy beer, like, and these like dry hopped lagers aren't what you're looking for, and you want like a mosaic bomb, that's fine. Like, we'll totally have that ready for you. But what we do, like percentage wise, 100% has been German inspired from the beginning.
And I have on my resume that I was involved in a beer at Heirloom because you took dandelions from my yard and brewed with it. So if you get a call about that, that's where that came from.
Yeah. No, I could get C&Ds from like 75 citizens in Tulsa for that beer. that was a communal effort.
It was a communal beer.
Yeah. I've been driving around seeing dandelions and being like, oh, do I want to do that again? It's such I cannot tell you how much cellar that takes, that beer to make.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like,
is it worse than the berries?
I think it's worse than everything.
Okay.
Because it's like 75 pounds of dandelions.
It's a lot of dandelions.
Myself and Jess probably picked like 25 pounds of them, and it's like 4 or 5 days of picking straight. And then hopefully other people show up with them. And then I make the base beer as a French petite lager. Turns out nobody gives a shit. And then we did it as a pet nat. So as it's fermenting, we bottle it, which requires so much finesse to get, because then it ferments the rest of the way.
That's an understatement.
To make, like, not blow the bottle up, but also be carbonated to a level that I'm happy with. And so that beer is like a keep you up at night beer for like, hope everybody shows up for the 2.9% lager release. And it's
that we spent
way too
12
much time
days
on.
to make.
Yeah, exactly. That's
but it was delicious.
Yeah, it's a fun beer. I love making that beer too, but it's like rip your hair out, frustrating. So I don't have any.
That's why.
And that's where we're going to go with that.
I want to get into you mentioned fly fishing. I want to go there next. We still have a lot to go. Do you want to do yours, or do we want to go one more? Because we have 3 left over here.
Oh, we're having fun.
And we have this, which I'm letting breathe, and then we have yours. Where do you want to
go? We can drink mine.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's fun. So I did bring our British Golden today, and that's what we named it. Because we're like, F it. This is what it is.
Yeah.
So we called it British Golden.
Sometimes that's the best approach.
Right.
No mystery.
IPA.
No mystery.
Yeah.
But it is our collaboration with Balcones. And our head brewer, David McLean, is friends with their operations manager.
Oh, cool.
So he's obviously a very busy dude ordering all of the ingredients for the distilling side and taking over the mashing for the distilling side, but also has a little bit of a hobby on the side to make beer. And they actually have a brewing or beer brewing side to their deal.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And they have a little tap room with it. So we brought him over, and this is about as close as you can get to their base whiskey mash bill.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. So
is that the nose I get?
Yeah.
Because it almost has like a...
It's very marmalade-y because we took their mash bill and then took our house English strain, yeast strain. And our English yeast strain that we use is very marmalade-y.
Where would I get... And my nose might be off, but it's almost like in the chocolate family or something. Like I'm getting some sort of
like coffee.
Yeah, like coffee or chocolate.
Yeah. That's one thing that I love about noses and palates. I don't get coffee, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
I mean, it's subtle, but I get what you're saying. Yeah. Just like definitely more like a decadent kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So you mentioned fly fishing and how you like to bury yourself alive 3 times and then crawl out. So if you're not brewing beer, chances are they can find you on some river or some lake with usually a fly rod in your hand.
Yep.
Talk to me about your love of that, and then let's get into the conservation side. But first, like, did you fish all your life? How did you get introduced to it? Is it really your escape? Like, is that what you...
Yeah, that's the earliest memories, definitely. Both my parents are from Florida, and we grew up super poor. But within the family, they had this kind of beach shack, and we would go every other year for 2 weeks. And we would, my favorite memories, childhood memories, period, are the dock would go out and then there were these lights off the dock and we would night fish and you would see shrimp swimming through, and then you would just see monster flashes of just all kinds of species. And we would fish until midnight, 1, 2 a.m. I mean, I remember sneaking out to fish. Like my parents would make me go to bed and I would be like, this is bullshit.
There's fish out there, Mom.
Fish out there right now.
And and I would go out and my older brother would still be out there and would be like, you're a snitch if you tell. Like, but
the guilt trip.
Yeah. I mean, some of my earliest tears for sure would be hearing fish splashes from somebody having one on while I'm supposed to be in bed, and I can hear that shit through the window, and I'm just like, this is the worst.
This is torture.
Yeah.
Not today.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And my uncles were all like commercial fishermen of some sort. So I was taught how to throw a casting net super early and was catching bait super early, and really have never experienced anything that I cared about on that level.
That's awesome.
So yeah. And then I don't know, I guess like college hit, was working 2 jobs, putting myself through school, dating girls, kind of left it for a while. And then a buddy like took me in Oregon. I was like, whoa.
I forgot.
I totally forgot that this was like an obsession forever. And it just got real out of hand. I was, especially over there, because you can just be like on a salmon run river in 45 minutes, and incredible place. And then, I quietly tell people that all of my job acceptance stuff, so when I knew I was going to leave Prairie, I sent resumes to Fauna Flora, Ale Apothecary, and Wolves and People. And all of those are on incredible rivers. And so it's like...
It was a very strategic decision.
And then I went to St. Somewhere, which is in a place called Tarpon Springs.
Ooh.
Yeah. Further
fish for some tarpon.
Yeah. And so that's always been a big play in where I've lived.
So how did the conservation come into it here locally? Because if you're not the spearhead, you're one of the faces of that whole movement, if you want to call it that, or just bringing attention to the need for certain river conservation or whatever. How did you get? I mean, I guess it just goes hand in hand with the fishing.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I'm teaching people how to fish, part of that is always understanding the issues on water. And the fact of the matter is there's a lot of people that live on Earth now. And, you got to take some responsibility if you're going to enter into these places. And that's just made sense to me since I was young. And I think it really makes sense, too. Like when I went back and revisited when I lived in Florida, that old beach house, I haven't been there in 12 or 13 years. Didn't even recognize the water. Totally limited fish in there, stocks are just really low. Once you interact with watching fisheries change, super motivating to get involved. And so it's been that way, I'd say, since I was a teenager. I've always worked at nonprofits while I'm doing my money-making job and volunteer for 10 or 15 hours a week at whatever local nonprofit.
So what would you describe the scene as locally on the conservation side?
It's tough. It's super tough to do conservation in Oklahoma. I don't think this is a super political statement, but I'm sorry if I offend you.
Not really, guys.
We're just, it's an anti-regulation state. And I think kind of the conversation that'll probably happen over the next 10 years is how do we not regulate things so much where people can't open businesses and can't farm and those kind of things, but also regulate enough where we don't kill fisheries and watersheds. And that's kind of the take that I try to have. And so I talk to a lot of people that are I should be able to fish anywhere, keep every fish I catch, no questions asked, and same with hunting. And it's that's a great way to make sure your kids don't get to go ever.
Yeah.
And, but that's what they've been taught, all along, is that any form of regulation is government not acknowledging the individual. And while I get some of that in theory, I'm also kind of if individuals aren't regulated, that means that a couple individuals can wipe the whole thing out.
Yeah.
And so in Oklahoma, it's tough because there's square one and then there's where we're at, which is really far back there. And so trying to get any conservation done here is extremely difficult. When I'm talking to politicians, I don't even tell when they're what is Trout Unlimited? I'm it's a fishing club. I don't tell them it's a conservation organization.
Right.
Because as soon as they hear conservation, they're Sierra Club? No, not at all. I'm here to talk to you about making sure the state makes good money on these rivers and streams. And, and that's how I kind of have to do it. So I've had to learn how to create a narrative for people that I'm not on the same page with. To try to get things done. I think conservation fails a lot here because most conservationists are very polarizing in their beliefs and compromise capability. And for me, it's if I can only get them halfway, at least I got them half, because it's way better than them just shutting the door and continuing to pollute at the same level.
So if someone's listening or watching, how can they help? How can they get involved? What do you need? What does that look like?
Yeah. So the big project right now for me is the Arkansas River.
Absolutely.
And that's a that's got a lifetime of struggles and issues that people could get involved with. But the best way to get involved, in my opinion, is to go to that river and experience it. But more than that, so we're starting a 501c3 called Tulsa River Guardians. And the whole purpose of that, and my biggest thing is I think a lot of people see the Arkansas River and have given up on it. You know, it's like, I've been fishing before and like an entire playground has come down, you know, in the river. And, you know, it's like there's shopping carts turned over. There's all kinds of debris. There's highway, like pieces of highway with rebar sticking out. I mean, it's taken a beating. And that's what happens to urban rivers. But I think the problem is that's allowed some of these projects to go by with zero scrutiny because people are just like, well, fuck it. You know, like that river's done. And then they see pictures of the fish that me and friends are catching out of it. And they're like, hey, where is that? I'm like, the same place.
That river you said was fucked.
Same place.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, I've fished in the top fisheries in this country, all of them. And there has never been a fishery as good as the Arkansas River, ever. The amount of fish that you can catch, you know, I feel confident that I can get into it with like a 10, 12-pound fish more often than I can on most days.
How far do you have to go away from the city?
Sometimes not at all.
Really?
I mean, when there's not gigantic bulldozers in the gathering place river, like I've caught huge fish out of there. And that's one of the ways that I'm trying to do conservation different. You know, like we're supposed to have a meeting pretty soon with Ken Levitt, and, you know, I'm going to be like, dude, I want like world record fish being caught in your park. And that's 100% possible. And trying to use the economics versus just like sanctity of the ecosystem. Because, yeah, there's just a lot of people who don't care. I mean, which is crazy for me. Yeah. Like,
you're living here. Like,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. And coming from the West Coast and the East Coast and spending lots of time on both, everybody's tearing down dams or looking at tearing down dams on both coasts, because what they've found is that clean water rivers do more economically than anything that the dams contribute. And so you're talking about like pulling down major hydro dams too, never mind ones that aren't really doing much. So it's weird too to know you're in a conversation that won't matter in like 20 years.
Yeah.
It's like, this dam's not going to be here in 20 years because it's just going to be pulled down because there's better ways to make money on this river. But you got to kind of go in with a lot of humility and be like, so tell me, like, what are you most excited about with the new Zinc Dam? And hear them talk about, you know, whatever they're pumped about, and try to be like, you know,
you realize
how do I get you to this place where you care about native species? And luckily, I mean, I hope, you know, the Kaiser Family Foundation seems like the perfect avenue for, like, look, man, you're teaching kids in this lab. You know there's going to be outdoor classroom stuff going on here eventually. Like, don't you want to be a part of saying that you preserved 30 plus native species that, you know, come through this watershed? And so that's kind of how I do it, which is a definitely different approach. But I'm also like, I hate politics and I hate politicians. So at the same time, I'm kind of the weirdest conservation guy you're ever going to meet, because I'm just like, no, I just want to make sure that 50 years from now, somebody can come out here and catch a 20-pound striper.
Yeah. Something to be said for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like a cool way of putting Tulsa on the map that sometimes our city leaders aren't aware of. You know, it's like, man, way cooler way than putting millions of dollars into projects on a river is to have a river that's just full of anglers having a blast and kayakers. Like,
what's amazing to me is that, I mean,
and we have a lot of fish.
Yeah, and we have a lot of fishermen And like bass comes here for Bassmasters, and Major League Fishing is headquartered down in South Tulsa.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, or the production arm of it. I think they're actually in Dallas, but the production company that does that for them is here in Tulsa, because I've been to their studios, and it's just such a weird juxtaposition to have that many fishermen, fisherwomen, whatever, and then Bassmasters coming here because of our freshwater, not necessarily rivers, but lakes, and then Major League Fishing, but then to just let the rivers go to shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's just weird.
And that's like a total, like, it's the culture shift too, because like my older brother, he's a guy who fishes in a lot of tournaments, and like a sparkle boat guy, like, the
sparkle boat.
Sparkle boat.
Yeah. It's a total bass thing,
Yeah.
And so like I took him out to the Arkansas, and he was totally out of his element, but he's like a million times better angler than I am. But out there is just like completely lost because it's so big and vast, and it's not very clear. It's like the whole thing's maybe 8 feet deep, and it's like, where do I even start on this? And it took me like, I don't know, year and a half to figure it out. But getting those folks interested, and that's the hard thing, is there's no trout, and the largemouth game is not there. And if we had either one of those, this would be a done deal. Like, those are money fish for sure. But as far as GDP goes, striped bass is a top fish in the country for GDP production. And so I'm hitting that real hard in these conversations and being like, this is a crazy expensive fish on the East Coast, and we can actually catch like competitive weights on these things.
So that's an interesting segue into my last question would be, Tulsa growing as an economy, and we probably should pour something else.
Go ahead. I just grabbed one.
Tulsa trying to grow as an economy. We've poured a lot of money into a lot of different things, such as like BMX biking, music scene, which is really, really cool. Yeah. Our restaurant scene is out of this world, in my opinion. Do you see, the fish, like when I tell people that are coming out of town to Oklahoma, and I'm like, well, actually, we are one of the number one fishing communities in the nation here. They're like, no kidding. And it's like, you didn't know that? How do you, hearing all of the things that you're talking about, do you think that is a point to where we could, as a city, concentrate on to bring people into this area? Because stripers are awesome for fish.
Yeah.
And, bringing people into that world and really kind of opening their eyes. What do you think that we would need to do as a city to get that accomplished?
Well, I think it kind of already happens. It's just more about there's no data for it. So that's the most frustrating part is I'll walk in and be like, yeah, I was fishing today up at Keystone Dam, and there were 50 anglers on either side of it pulling out 6 fish limits, all of them 6 pounds plus. Like, that's insane, and it constantly reproduces itself. Like, that's been happening for years. And, you talk to any angler that's been fishing this river for more than 10 years, and they all have a 25-pound plus story. And it's easier to catch a big fish on that river than any place on earth. And I do think that there's actually a lot of people that fly in to do it. I know people that fly in to do it.
So do I.
Yeah. The data is just not there. I would love to have a statistic for like this many millions, between like Bass Pro, restaurants, wherever you're staying, but it just doesn't exist. And then when you're sitting there in front of a city council board and you're like, man, I can tell that none of you are in this group. And so you're trying to figure out ways to be like, no, this is not just like some dude wailing about whatever local issue, and I'll be here next week to talk about whatever's wrong then. It's like, this is a really big deal. And I wish that there was data for me to give you. And since none of you actually are on that river, you don't know this for yourself either. So it's just me, like, I don't know, being a passionate guy. And they're like, that's really sweet.
Oh, Jay. Yeah.
Look at this guy. He cares about nature. And it's like, yeah, great.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to get anywhere on that. And, you know, I think too, it's, and the thing I come back to a lot is there's so much political apathy here. And if more people just like let city councilors, representatives know their take on something, they would be shocked at how much would change. Like, I'm the conservation chair for Trout Unlimited, and the amount of times that we've made like 15 phone calls, and you know, and that senator or representative is like, holy shit, what is going on? You know, and it's like 15. You know?
When people say like, call your senator or call the person or email them, it actually goes directly to their office.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge impact.
Yeah. I've got 3 city councilors' phone numbers, and like I can just text them, and which was really great because when the city took my water meters without asking, I was like, hey y'all, different subject completely, but I can't brew and all of my water meters are gone. And, you know, and then 2 hours later, I've got, you know, people calling and they're like, holy shit, we're so sorry. You know,
what was that mix up?
Yeah, exactly. So that was a wild deal. Came in, all of our water meters are gone, 0 warning, 0 notice. And so
got to pay your bills, Jake.
Yeah, right? Well, we've been trying not to pay the city of Tulsa since we opened, and it finally caught up. So what happened was we had a break-in, and they took our safe in November. In the safe was our checkbook. So we had to open a new account. And so we get everybody that we pay bills, all of that info. So city of Tulsa, December, takes money out, no problem. For whatever reason, their system reverts back to the old info in January. Well, they call us and tell us that. Well, we call them, and they're like, your information's all updated, so sorry about that. And then February, no notice, take our water meters because it did the same thing. So even though our information is accurate in the system, it continues to not give a shit about that information.
That's weird.
Super weird. The guy that I talked to was like, I've never seen this in my entire life, and I've been doing this for decades. And I was like, glad it happened to me.
Awesome. I was trying to brew today.
Yeah. Small business stuff, man. All the time.
I know it. I went ahead and poured the Yellowstone because we're almost done here, and we've got to get to the big beer you have over there.
Yeah.
So I wanted us to taste this. I don't know if it's a good idea to do it first before we have the last beer or not, but
no, it's all right.
Let's barrel age
this was one
pills.
of, yeah, right. This was from my Spirits of Legend bourbon group. It was a barrel pick that they did out there, 115 proof from Yellowstone. It's pretty good.
Distilled
It
on the
smells
Dutton
good.
Ranch.
On the Dutton Ranch, yeah. So
It's got a lot of pepper fire to it. I love it.
Beth is the sticker on the back that says, "You're the trailer park, I'm the tornado." So a nice little Beth Dutton quote from Yellowstone. How's your love of and like palate for bourbon?
It's so I have a lot of bourbon. I drink more rum, but I do like bourbon, and in the winter, that's a go-to for sure.
For sure.
I'm trying to think. You know Orphan Barrel?
I don't.
So
the name is vaguely familiar, but I couldn't tell you why.
Super crazy, like they just age for eternities, and then there's just one barrel of whatever. But I think the youngest I've ever seen them do is 15.
Oh, wow.
And Melissa had this bottle. It's called Lost Profit. I think it's 18 year.
Jeez.
It is mind blowing. It's like the first, like, you have a lot of whiskey and bourbon that's neck and neck, and you're like, that's good. And it's like maybe a little bit better than this. This was like miles ahead of everything I've ever had. And then I looked it up, and it's like a $500 bottle. So
Aaron Post was here about a month ago, roughly. And I've got to stop telling the story on this podcast because I think we've told it way too many times.
That's what Aaron Post is good for, though.
Yeah.
He's going to bring a
So he
showstopper.
brought a dusty turkey is what he called it. It was a 79 wild turkey. Dude, it was out of this world.
Oh my God.
Did I say that right? Was it 79?
It was distilled in 79.
So that's what it was. It was distilled in 79. It was like a 80. It was a 12 year, right?
Bottled in 91
91. It was a 12 year.
or 12.
Yeah, but that means it was like distilled in 79. I mean, it was to this day probably the best bourbon I've ever had.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, Post turns out knows his shit.
And what's funny, so he's sitting where you are, and he just has it out here. It's in its little cylinder thing. It's got like foil on it and all this stuff. And I poured just like probably this much, right? Because I know what I'm looking at.
Right.
This dude is like, I'll take some more of that. And so it's like,
and Aaron's like,
but
oh
Aaron,
yeah,
to his
sure.
credit, was like, hey, bourbon's made to be consumed. So here, John,
Yeah.
take some more. And I'm like, no, I know. He's like, no, seriously. But,
He's the most giving.
he really is. Yeah.
It's almost frustrating how, I don't know, like every time he opens a bottle, it's like, I mean, he took me into his wine cellar the last time we had dinner. It's like, these are things that I got in the last week. God damn it.
You suck.
Yeah. What a wonderful world.
What do you think of this?
Super cool.
It is good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
It's got a little dark cherry to it.
It does have dark fruit for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't called that in a long time.
And
Like-
for 115 proof, it's not overly hot. Like there's enough there to let you know that it's a relatively high proof, but it's not.
Yeah, well, and high proof anymore is hilarious.
Honestly.
I feel like we're going to be like buying 160 proof.
So
like next
this
year.
group they said soon we're going to have a wheated whiskey that's in the 150s.
Oh my.
I don't know if I'm going to buy that bottle because it sounds like napalm. Like I don't know.
Sounds like divorce papers. Sounds like a good way to end every friendship you've ever had.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So as we finish this up, I'll ask a last question. I want to open that big one.
Yeah.
The pleasure feeder, I don't know if we're going to get to, but that's on tap right now at Heirloom, right? Okay.
Yep.
So we can
there's plenty of that.
go try that there. Why Ferrari?
Oh shit.
Let's just get into the F1 talk.
Yeah.
Come on.
Because he's an F1er
I'm
too.
an
so
F1er.
Yeah.
So
I love
why
it.
Ferrari?
I
I mean, come on.
think for me
Fast.
the original Marlboro car,
Oh yeah.
like I don't know.
That was
It's-
back in the Schumacher days, right?
Williams?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Was that Williams?
No, that's Ferrari.
That was Ferrari back
Oh,
in
that
like
was
the
Ferrari.
Schumacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And I think that's the sexiest car of all time. And it's just hard for me to like even imagine.
Dude, this
caring
one's
about.
close though with that matte red.
Oh, the matte red and the fish gills?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm all about it. It's not as cool for me as that, but that's like, I don't know. It's like watching a Western versus
Well, it's
James
nostalgia
Bond.
versus
Yeah. It's like
That's a great description.
All right, hand me that big one as we talk. Is that a popped? I need to use my keys.
it's not popped.
Twist.
Yeah.
No, I mean, is it a popped up?
Oh no. You'll need to. There you go.
There we go.
It's probably going to come after you too.
Is it?
It's
Okay.
carbonated.
All right, I'll be ready. So talk. Jesus, John. Uh-oh.
It's the wide.
Yeah, might
it's
not
the wide
be
cap.
good for this. What you got? You got something?
Knife.
Try it. So,
I can get it. Pass me.
ooh, that could have ended so badly. The knife just like. What's your F1 team while he's doing this? There you go. Don't cut your thumb off, please.
No, he's not.
I'm not.
I know.
I got it.
One, that's That's a brewer's knife. He knows how to use that.
There it is. It's
My
coming after
F1
us a little
team?
bit, but not bad. Yeah. Do you have a team? So I've figured this out, and I'll answer your question as you think about it with like a question. We don't need the napkins. You're okay. Thanks, Hayden. I do this in Premier League soccer too. I'm a fan of players/drivers. I don't have team affiliation yet in my life.
Gotcha.
So as soon as Andretti launches the U.S. team in 2023 or 4, that'll be my team. But right now, there are certain drivers I like. So that's why I asked about Ferrari.
Do you have a hope for the Andretti driver? Like, do you think he's going to
That's a great question.
pull from the same pool, or is he going to go get some like NASCAR name that's going to get people buying tickets?
You know who I hope he gets, which I don't think he can. Sorry.
It's just stemless.
Would
now.
you like a stimulus
It's
class,
just
Jake?
stemless now.
That's awesome.
Don't cut your hand on this, please. Just
I got
hold it up top. There you
Yeah,
go.
I got it.
That's a newly
That was a
engineered.
clean-
That's a newly engineered glass.
Clean break there.
Yeah.
Sorry there. I hope he goes after some of the young like F2 drivers.
That would make the most sense. I just wonder if
Yeah.
he's gonna pull the ultimate American and be like,
Just claim people.
he's like already like contracted Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s junior
Right.
or something. I don't know.
I don't know either. Before we get too far down the F1 rabbit hole, what is this?
So this beer is brewed with Floodland. This is a Floodland collab.
Come up to that
yeah.
microphone.
Yeah.
I want people to hear this.
Yeah. So Floodland is my friend Adam. He originally started with Holy Mountain out in Seattle and then started his own project. I think Adam makes, his saisons speak for themselves. He works with fruit in a way that I think he is making the best beers with wine fruit in the country for sure.
It's a beautiful bottle too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
But Adam and I have been friends for a long time. I love to tell this story. Adam and I became friends because I didn't mean to, but I made fun of him on Untapped. Back in the day, Untapped was just a brewer thing before it became like a
And I
consumer
liked it then.
Yelp.
I liked it then.
Yeah, it was a good time. But I checked in my first Holy Mountain beer, and it was super bready, and to the point. And for me, the bread that he used always smells like Band-Aids, and but like maybe a more complimentary way would have been leather. But I checked it in,
I see. Yeah.
and I said Band-Aids and pineapples, and immediately he responds and is like, "You never want to hear that." And so I'm brewing at Wolves and People one day, and this dude walks in, and he's sitting below the brewing platform, and he was like, "Band-Aids and pineapples, man. I'll never fucking forget that." And so at that moment, we just started planning this collab, and it has fallen through because of so many crazy things. Like he had a kid, COVID. And so we have been planning a collab for almost 5 years. And so this collab is we brewed Cavern Him, my Kolsch, and then aged it in a barrel of his, or a couple barrels with his culture in there. But we let it sit and we fermented it with my Kolsch. So there was only a little bit of the residual sugar left for his kind of culture to get in there and do some work. And
Dude, it's brilliant.
It's so good.
yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Did you try it yet?
I've had so many people reach out about how badass this beer is, and I'm like, still haven't fucking tried it.
Is this your first go?
right here, first sip.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What's your initial off the sip?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like these beers I feel like are so hard to find. It's like truly a mixed culture beer, but
Dude.
the acid is so perfect.
That's
I
one of
hate
the
high
best.
acid so much, and this is
Like that style of beer, that's one of the best I've had in a minute.
The cool thing is that you can taste the Cavern Him. but also tastes all that like breadiness, little bit of acid character and barrel content. Yeah. But that's such a cool marriage between that. That's a really good collab.
Yeah. It's fun because you rarely get those collabs where you feel like you're drinking both breweries. But I went into this collab knowing, just because Adam and I, there are a few people that I've talked beer with still, and Adam is one. And I don't know of many people I feel like the wavelength is so specific and familiar, and so making beer with him's like a joy.
So is this really all he does? That's super stylistically?
Cool. Yeah, he makes, I think he told me that he made 220 barrels last year, which is like nothing. But he's like,
I mean, what now?
220 barrels, but it's probably the most sought after beer in the country.
So I would put that into layman's terms.
That would be,
what does that?
That would be me brewing 20 times in a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which
how many times do you brew in a year?
220 times.
Gotcha.
Yeah, super, super small stuff. But all of his, I mean, the dude releases only sophisticated stuff. I mean, it's...
What a cool label too.
Yeah. Well, the label's great. The taste is amazing.
It's beautiful.
4 to 4.5%.
Yeah. Well, come on, dude. Do you think I was going to do anything different?
No, but I've also never seen a label have a range.
Oh, the range on it. I thought you were saying 4.5%. Lower.
No. I love that. I love that. But I've never seen a range of ABV.
So it's kind of a wine thing too, to do like the vintage range. And so I think for him, I don't know this, but it was probably he had the label done before the beer was attenuated.
So he was guessing.
And he's like, I love this about him. He's like, dude, breweries are so full of shit. Almost every beer is completely wrong on their alcohol content. And he is like very intense about making sure that whatever that label reads is what you're drinking. And so
what's not on there is like, where are they?
He's in Seattle.
He's in Seattle? Okay.
Yeah, so all of his beer is sold through membership, and it's like no chance of getting in.
I love that.
Yeah.
I might lean on you to get a membership for that beer.
Oh my gosh, dude. It's one of those things I would never even ask him for it, because he's just like, the dude has people like knocking down his
Dude, that is delicious beer. Thank you for bringing that.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to finally get my paws on it too.
Take the rest of that to Melissa.
No, that is awesome.
That is
We're
delicious.
We're gonna finish this bottle after.
So before we go, so there is an F1 fan group / watch parties being held at Heirloom, which you haven't come to yet.
I haven't, and I'm really sad that I wasn't able to come the last time.
Well, Australia Grand Prix is, I don't know how to say it.
Is it this Sunday?
Is it Saturday night or Sunday morning? Either way, it's at midnight, either Saturday night or Sunday morning is when the race starts.
Yeah, you just basically need to
Don't go to bed Saturday night.
Yeah, after whatever bar you're at on Saturday night, come to Heirloom.
The one thing, so there's a Facebook group, you can search for it. It's like Tulsa F1 Fan Club or something like that. There will be probably some sort of food to be determined, but obviously Heirloom beers and cool people hanging out and watching the races. So it's fun.
Yeah.
You asked me earlier what my driver is.
Or ask your team or whatever. But yeah, who do you, are you a fanboy of anyone?
Not really. This is going to sound sad because I know that it's not necessarily super light, but I am a Red Bull fan.
No, you're done.
But I
I actually like Checo. I love Sergio Perez. I hate Max Verstappen.
But
with a passion.
I like Hamilton as a driver better.
Good.
Does that make sense?
Like, with a heart
it's
and
kind
a
of
soul.
weird. I don't know.
No, it's like kind of like trying to not like Kobe Bryant as a basketball player.
Fair.
Exactly.
It's like,
no, but I love the idea. I love Red Bull. Like, I'm not talking in F1 terms. I love Red Bull. I love what they do with like extreme sports and like that whole world.
The culture of Red Bull.
The culture of Red Bull. I know people that work at Red Bull that are involved.
I don't like Max Verstappen.
But not only Verstappen, but Christian Horner I don't like him.
I love Christian Horner.
Do you? We had this conversation.
Christian Horner's like, I'm going to start some shit today.
Yeah.
I don't know who it's going to be with.
And you know what I heard someone say on an F1 podcast that I was listening to that actually made sense and made me respect him a little more is that's probably a calculated thing that he's doing.
100%.
Where when he gets the attention and he gets the press and he gets the negativity and he gets all of this, you know who's not getting it? The rest of the team and the drivers and all of that. And so now he hasn't said that. So either
he's already like, you can see him mic'd up talking and going, he's just waiting for a wrong turn.
Sure.
To be like, I'm going to need you to look at that again. And I mean, he calls in everything.
I mean, plus he's married to a Spice Girl, so fuck him.
He takes a helicopter to work. He's fine.
He's good.
He's okay.
Yeah.
But
I wanted to be married to a Spice Girl, so maybe it's jealousy. Maybe it's a little bit of jealousy coming through.
Yeah, it's probably
the estate with the horses and
he's
the Spice
an appropriate
Girl
guy to be jealous.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, come on, dude.
Yeah,
and he has like some sort of ranch in England.
Yeah, like Berkshire or whatever it was called,
I'm sure
or whatever.
He's got multiple places that he could live if he wanted to.
Yeah. So this weekend, Australian Grand Prix at Heirloom, Saturday night / Sunday morning.
Yeah, midnight. We've never done this kind of thing.
No, and then the 6 a.m. will come quick.
At midnight.
Yeah.
Oh man, are you going to be there?
I'm going to be there for sure. I'll be there for an F1 race at midnight.
We'll clink some glasses.
Yeah.
I'll try to be there.
It'll be good. It'll be fun.
All right. So when can people, outside of that timing, when can people come to Heirloom? What's your hours? Where can they find you on social? Like all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So if you just look up Heirloom Rustic Ales, Instagram, Facebook, take it right to us. 3 to 9 is the standard. And then the weekend hours are a little different. I think we're open till like 10 or 11 on Friday, Saturday.
Nice, man.
Yeah. Yep. And then noon to 7 on Sunday. I don't work the bar anymore.
Man, it's a rarity when Jake's behind the bar.
And no one wants it. No one wants that.
I'm in the same boat. People are like, what are your hours? And I'm like,
I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. That is.
Lisa's changed them so many times. I don't know.
That is off my plate for sure.
I'm going to pour a sip of this so that I can cheers you and thank you for coming on the podcast.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah. You need a little bit more.
Sure.
You can't cheers with an empty glass.
No, we can't.
And I just noticed I did cut my finger when that glass broke.
Oh.
But not bad.
First bloodshed.
We're okay. Cheers. Jake Miller.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for
bringing some badass shit.
Finally, we have you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm glad it worked out.
It did.
Even today, I was like, man, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to have like COVID or something.
I was waiting for the text like, I can't make it. It's like, damn it.
Yeah. I was like, what other thing can go wrong on this?
I know it. All right. We'll let you get out of here. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That was Jake Miller. Cheers to him for coming on the podcast. And we went a bunch of different places, and
we
fun.
tasted a bunch of beer. We broke glasses. It was cut fingers. It was a great conversation.
Tweaked our already bad ankle trying to run jackets outside. Like we did all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. But it was cool because not only did we dive into Tulsa, but we dove into what this area's conservation could actually tie into.
Yeah, Jake's big in that world. If you didn't know that before, now you do. Like that's his heart.
You know, as a hunter myself, I would consider myself a conservationist, but he himself is actually in the forefront of that mind and actually on boards and whatnot and actually making a huge difference within this state. Not only for, water here is so in abundance and can't be forgotten about.
It's true.
But he makes a huge difference in that area and helps. I'm not necessarily a fisherman, but I am a hunter. But all of that ties into each other.
100%.
And it's a symbiotic relationship, and it's cool what he's doing.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Good show.
Yeah, good show.
Show, episode, whatever.
Yeah, episode, whatever. Who cares?
We'll be back next week on the Tasting Room. See you guys.
Cheers.